My name is Trent Salkavich from sportspodiatrist.com, and I'm here today with my colleague Emily Smith to talk to you about blister prevention taping for Oxfam Trailwalker. There are three things you require. One's a hypoallergenic underlay, and two, we need two different thicknesses of sports tapes, a thin and a thick. So we start with our patient with their foot in a fairly neutral position. We ask the patient to lift their foot up towards their body, to making sure the skin is quite taut. Firstly, grab our pre-cut pieces of hypoallergenic tape, and we start at the base of the heel. When we apply the tape, we make sure that we're not using any creases, so we first obtain good skin contact, even on both sides, and apply even pressure up through the foot, making sure there are no creases and there's no wrinkling of the skin in the arch. We'll need roughly 3 to 4 pieces of this tape. And we follow this tape up the arch of the foot, overlapping by roughly a quarter. Again, making sure there are no creases. We need to make sure that we try and get the tape as high as possible on the foot, but not too high as it cuts off the creases of the big toe and also the little toe. So here we're applying a protective layer on the whole bottom surface of the foot. Secondly, we'll grab our sports tape. We pretty much repeat the process. Again, making sure there are minimal creases. You'll notice that I'm finishing the tape. I'm not circumducting the foot, but I'm finishing just up before this bony prominence up through here. And we try and make it as even as possible. What's important also is that you leave just a small layer of the white tape on top, otherwise the brown tape will start to fray. So this is essentially what we need to do to provide protection on the bottom of the foot. And just to complete the taping, we also need to address the heel. We obtain another piece of the white tape. And what we can do, little creases on either side, little cuts from either side. And I do that with extreme caution as to not hurt my fellow team member. And there we go, our heel is protected. So the most common part of the heel that becomes blistered is this base here. We have to make sure the tape comes up, but not too high onto the Achilles, but just enough to cover the base of the heel. So now we apply our thin tape. After measuring it, around, which effectively locks down that tape that we've just applied. One more piece of the white tape that we apply quite loosely. Emily, just drop your foot please. To the top of the foot. Depending on how big the foot is, we can use 2 pieces of tape. making sure that it's applied with very little tension, because we don't want to block off the important nerves and blood vessels that supply the toes. And from here, one last piece of tape. Foot up please, Emily. Again, the number one rule is it would never circumduct the foot. However, we want to finish our taping on top of the foot. And here's our semi-completed preventative taping. So just to reiterate, we've applied a white layer of tape, the hypoallergenic tape, from the base of the heel all the way up to the front of the foot, but not too far up. Secondly to that, we applied the brown tape. Thirdly to that, we applied the heel tape. Fourthly, we applied the locking tape. And fifth, we closed up the top here. If you're prone to blisters in between the toes, what we can do is apply preventative taping, very similar to what we've done here, but in between the toes. I'll just demonstrate on the big toe. However, this can be done with each toe, depending on your history. So again, a very thin piece of white material, white tape. It gets quite fiddly. Again, I apply very little tension. The tape is quite stretchy. And following that white tape, we apply our thin brown tape around the toe. Again, making sure that we don't apply too much tension as to reduce blood flow. It's also important to note that this side of the big toe is quite a common area for blisters. On top of this, there are also some specialist socks out there that you can purchase that have individual compartments for all of the toes, which is an option on top of this taping. So once the tape is completed, now we ask your patient to stand up and offer as much feedback as possible as to how the tape feels on the foot. What we're looking for mainly is pinching of the skin and also any parts that the patient will report that may feel uncomfortable. So Emily, do you mind just standing up please? And get the patient to take a couple of steps. And how does that feel?
Feels very good.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep.
If you have any questions about this taping, we'd like you to email us at trent@sportspodiatrist.com.au and Emily@sportspodiatrist.com.au.